Well, I'm sure if you've been watching television at some point, or you've been scrolling on social media, on Facebook or Instagram or anything else like that, you've come across an ad either for a weight loss program or a program that is designed to get you into shape, and they all kind of start the same way. They all have this picture of what you look like, or what someone looks like before the program, and then what you will look like after the program. And it's incredible because now with AI and with our phones and all of that, they know exactly like your age. They don't have to just have a whole bunch of different ads. They know exactly like who you are. So for me, being close to 50, I get the ads up to 50 years. Are you getting close to 50 and out of shape? And and it's always like this. It's the picture of the 50-year-old, with the dad bod beforehand, and then the afterward is like the picture of the guy that has muscles in places he didn't even know he had muscles beforehand. And it's like, in 3 easy steps, 5 minutes a day, you can achieve this. It's like, that's a big prayer, those type of things. But we see that it's the before and after, and you see it more than just with the weight loss or the bodybuilding. I mean, you look at home improvement. Here's what your home will look like before. Here's what it will look like after. Lawn care. Here's what the lawn looks like before. Here's what it will look like after. There are a number of things. Your house. You need organization. Here's what will it look like before and after. And this morning, as we continue our series through the book of Mark, we are coming to a pretty clear section where there is a before and an after. And as we begin to look at that, what we'll begin to see is what this looks like in our life and the things that we can take note of and to make sure that we have it in our life. And so if you want a spot to follow along and take notes, there's a spot in the bulletin to do just that. If you prefer the electronic version, you can open up the YouVersion Bible app. Under the events section, look for the Rock Church, and there you'll find all the notes and the scripture that we're going to be looking at, as well as some devotional plans that you can choose from to help you go deeper this week. But before we're going further, let's stop and ask God to speak to us. Heavenly Father, this morning we thank you for who you are, and Father, for the awe and the wonder that we have when we come into your presence. And now as we take time to reflect on your word, God, I pray that you will just teach us. I pray that you will open our hearts and our minds so that we can grab a hold of what it is that you want us to grab hold of. And Father, may we hear what you have to say. God, remove any distractions. Remove anything that might get in the way. And Father, may we focus on you and who you are and what you want to accomplish this morning. And so God, speak because we're listening. And it's your name we pray. Amen. Mark chapter 5 is where we're going to be at this morning. And instead of reading the whole section and then going back and looking at it, we're going to deal with, or the whole passage, we're going to deal with sections as they come because there's a lot there. And so by the end of the morning, we'll get through the whole passage, the 20 verses that we're going to look at, but we're going to break them up into smaller sections. And this is what Mark writes, beginning with verse 1 of Mark chapter 5. It says, "They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, 'What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me.' For Jesus had said to him, 'Come out of this man, you impure spirit.' Then Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' 'My name is Legion,' he replied, 'for we are many.' And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area." And just to set the context of what is happening here, because you kind of need to see a little bit of what is happening here, not just in this section, but before this section as well. If you remember, we touched on that last week. Right before Mark chapter 5, you have Mark chapter 4. And in the end of Mark chapter 4, you begin to see where Jesus and the disciples have started on one side of the lake, and then Jesus tells them, let's cross to the other. And in the midst of that, they have this storm that they encounter. It's the storm that at the end, Jesus or the disciples are left with the thought of who Jesus is. Like, who is this man? Even the wind and the waves obey him. So that is happening right before this section. And so they finish their journey. If you read commentators, they probably say it was a couple hours journey across the lake. And so once the storm is there, they make their journey and they get to the other side of the lake. So soon after that, you can imagine, the adrenaline of the disciples is already at a high. Their nerves are on edge because of what they have just been through. And then they get to the other side of the lake, they make shore, they get out of the boat, and the first thing that they have happen to them is a demon-possessed man comes running up to them. And Mark alludes to something here a little bit later on, and we're going to take a look at this. Luke makes it pretty clear as to where the condition of this demon-possessed man is. And I think you need to understand a little bit of what's happening here, because we read this and like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not that bad. It's Jesus, it's a demon-possessed man. No. Luke, this is how he records it. He says this, for a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house. Okay, so I don't want to say picture this, but you need to understand the context of what's happening here. Disciples just get out of the storm, okay? And they're like, wow, that was intense. Like, we don't need to do that again. They get on shore, and a naked demon-possessed man comes running at them. The disciples are going, what did we sign up for? Like, what's next? Like, what's going on here? But this plays into what is happening here. This is a little bit of the context of here. First a storm, then a couple of hours later, this. And here's where we need to be careful with this story. Because we read this, and we make it all about the demon-possessed man. We're like, well, yeah, it's about the demon-possessed man, and I don't want to be demon-possessed, and so I'm going to stay away from that. And we stay away from the occult, and we stay away from witchcraft, and all those things that might lead us down the path of, becoming demon-possessed. And so we're like, just stay away from those things. And we need to understand, this guy is not like a little demon-possessed. He is a lot demon-possessed. Like, he's got like more than enough to go around. It's referenced there when Jesus asks his name, and he replies, my name is Legion. You kind of understand in that context, Rome is in charge of the day, and the empire, the military, had a company of men that were referred to as a legion. And so what that would mean is there would be up to 6,000 men in a legion. So when the demon says, my name is Legion, it's not like, hey, it's me and my buddy hanging out. There's a lot. We don't know exactly how many. We have a reference later on, and we're going to take a look at that here in just a minute. But there are a lot of them. But we make this story about being demon-possessed. And we need to understand, demons are a real thing, okay? Demon possession is a real thing. Some of your teachers are like, I know, I've got one in my class. Like, some of you were that kid in class, You convinced your teachers there were demons because you were in their class. We have that, right? And it's nice to laugh, and we kind of joke, and, teachers are like, I'm glad there's only 5 more days of school left. Yeah. And then you're like, then I get to deal with my own demons at home, We've all had that. And so demons are a real thing, okay? Demon possession is a real thing. I've had my experience with demons. I can remember I was a dean at a youth camp, and it was a family camp probably about 20 years ago or so. And there was an encounter, not me specifically, but I was part of, and Aaron was there too, where I've witnessed what demons and demon possession can do. And that was enough for my ministry. Like, one time, I'm good. I don't need to do that. It's a very real part of the world that we live in, okay? It's what Paul talks about in Ephesians 6 when he says this, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And so demon possession is a real thing. But if we are not careful, we make it about what is out there. And with the idea of, yeah, it's good to know that there are demons, it's good to know all that, but that really doesn't pertain to me, because you probably never have encountered a demon. You may never will in your entire life. And if we are a follower of Jesus, we don't have to worry about being demon-possessed, because we belong to Jesus, and there's no way that a demon can possess something that belongs or someone that belongs to Jesus. So in a way, this just becomes another good story. It's good to know, but we're not really sure what it means for my life, because if I'm a follower of Jesus, I don't have to worry about being possessed by a legion of demons, because I'm covered in his blood, and what Jesus did for me on the cross, and it's an incredible thing. And so we don't have to worry about this, and so it's just a good story. No, it's about what can Jesus do for other people, because we don't think we're like the demon-possessed man. But there may be more ways we are like the demon-possessed man than we may want to admit. Why? Not because we're demon-possessed, not because we have a demon, but it's because of this, because we can all be controlled by something we have no power over and is slowly destroying us. We can all be controlled by something that we have no power over and is slowly destroying us. You see there in Mark's description of the man that no one could bind him anymore. No one was strong enough to subdue him. And that word there that Mark uses for subdue was a word that they would use for wild animals. It literally meant to tame. And so what Mark says is, no one could tame this man. There was nobody anything could do. They tried chains. He just broke through the chains and all these things. He was just too powerful for them. This man was controlled by something, these demons, that no one could get a grip on, no matter how hard they tried. There was nothing they could do about it. I wonder if in our own life, it's those moments that we can understand and we can relate to what the man is experiencing, because we may not have a demon in our life, but we have something that seemingly has control over us that we just don't have any power over. There are things in our life that no matter what we do, we can't seem to control them. It's the things that we've tried to stop, but we just seem powerless over. We think, well, I'm going to control my gossip, and I don't want to be the gossip. I don't want to participate in the gossip. But then we get to the end of the day, and what happens? We look back at the conversations, and our conversations have been filled with, well, did you hear about this, or did you see this, or have you heard? And we're part of that, and we're like, well, man, I really wish I wouldn't have done that, but man, I found myself dealing with that and wanting to know and be in the circle. We think, well, I need to control my greed, and I want to control, my discontentment. But then what happens is we see what other people have, and we're like, well, it won't hurt if I work a little bit more. It won't hurt if I, kind of just maybe work a little bit overtime, or I shouldn't, just so I can get the money. It's just for a season. It's just for a little bit of time, so I can get the thing, or we can do the event, or whatever it may be. But we work so we can get more. Or like, well, I know I need to control my anger, and we think we're doing pretty good, and then that one person does that one thing that we really can't hate, that we don't like, and what does it do? It sends us flying off the handle, or saying things, or thinking things in our head. We just react. We try to control our lust, but what no one else knows won't hurt anyone, right? What I think about and what I look at is okay as long as I don't act on it. And so we have these things that we try to control in our life, those things that seemingly have power over us. And it's the things, and we all have them, okay? And it's those things that when we pray, God, forgive me for this, and I pray, or I commit that I will never do fill in the blank again. I'll never do that again. God, I've gotten power over it. I've gotten control over it. Whatever it may be. God, it's something that I'm going to get under control. We try to manage it to make sure it doesn't get any worse than what it is. And what we think is, well, as long as I have control over it, then we're good. As long as I can manage it, as long as I don't let it get any worse, as long as I don't let it get to the point where I'm the demon-possessed man, then I'm good. And in the end, we're no different than the demon-possessed man here in Mark 5. There is something that has control over us. We are powerless against it. And the thing about it is this: it never works out in our favor. We may think that we have it managed. We may think that, hey, I've got it under control, and what we do is we play that, well, at least I'm not as bad as this person. And we all have those people, right? We all have those people, well, at least my anger isn't bad as them. I've started, baseball season has started. And, so I'm down at the park, and it is real easy. If you want to, find someone worse, has worse anger, just watch, any level of baseball that we have. And as the season goes on, and especially as the weather gets hotter, you'll find people that are like, phew, at least I'm not that person. I can say stuff about the umpire and how bad his vision is, but at least I'm not them. You can find that. You can find it, the gossip. Well, at least I'm not as bad as that person is. And that's the game that we play. We think I've managed it and I'm controlling it, so at least I'm not as bad as that person. Look at the path that led them down, but it's not going to lead me down because I'm different. We're not the demon-possessed man, naked, running around, howling at the moon. We're like, that's not me. I got my clothes on today. I got dressed. I'm good. I didn't think about going outside and in the evening howling at the moon and all those things. I'm good. I'm not cutting myself with rocks. And you may be right in the specifics on it. It may not lead you down the path that someone else goes, and be thankful for that. But at the same time, don't fool yourself into thinking that it can hang around and there be no impact on your life. Because whether it is demon possession or just the sin that we deal with in life, it all has the same goal: to destroy. It's what the goal is. And we see this as the story continues. Because look at what happens. There's this initial encounter. The naked man runs up to Jesus, and this is what happens. It continues. It says, a large herd of pigs is feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, send us among the pigs. Allow us to go into them. He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. Then the herd, about 2,000, and this is where we kind of get that this man had a lot of demons, because pigs are not herd animals. They're just not. They don't act like that. About 2,000 in number rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. To be honest, if we're like, this is one of those stories, like, we don't want to, like, if we could watch from a distance, we would. Because, like, to see 2,000 pigs, like, all of a sudden just, like, do the lemming thing off a cliff into the water, it would be kind of impressive. Many of you, the men, you were at the breakfast yesterday, you're like, man, that's a lot of bacon. Like, pork chops and pulled pork and all that stuff that would be good. But here's the thing. The demons, and we look at this, and we're like, why would Jesus do that? Why would Jesus allow them to go into the pigs? Because he wants to show everyone what the demons intend to do, what their intent is. Their intent is not just to cause havoc with this man. Their intent is to cause havoc wherever they go. And so it doesn't matter if they're in the man, it doesn't matter if they're in the pigs. Their desire is the same thing. Their desire is to cause havoc. Their desire is to cause chaos and disruption. It is what Jesus says in John 10:10. The thief comes to steal and to kill and destroy. And Jesus says, you want an example of that? Here you go. Watch what happens. I take them out of the man, put them into the pigs, and look what they do to the pigs. It's what Peter writes about in 1 Peter 5:8. It says, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. What we need to understand about this is the intent of the demons is not just, hey, let's spend a little time in this guy's life and we'll make his life a whole lot better. It's the things that we want to do is we want to get to the point where we destroy. But we're like, well, I'm not going to let it get to that bad. I'm not going to let it get to that point. Things are not that bad right now. You know, I'm not to the point where I'm wanting to run off the cliff. I mean, right now, I've got it kind of managed right now. Solomon, in the book of Proverbs, writes the same verse twice. And it's not because he's looking for space. It's because I think he understands the role of it. And it's in Proverbs 14. It's also in Proverbs 16. And this is what it reads. He says, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. And so what we do is we look at it and we're like, well, I got it controlled. I got it under, I'm management. I'm not as bad as the demon-possessed man. I'm not as bad as fill in the blank. I'm not going to let it get any worse. But we need to see, like the demon-possessed man, we can all be controlled by something that we have no power over that is slowly destroying us. Whether it be in the physical world or whether it just be in causing damage in our relationship with God. We all have these things that we need to be aware of. That sin that we allow to kind of hang around is not going to end up in our benefit. It's not like, well, if I allow this sin in my life, eventually I will be better because of it. And my life will be better because of it. No, there is one reason that sin is in your life. It is to destroy you. It is to destroy your relationship. It is to destroy your mental state. It is to destroy whatever it may be. That is the purpose of that sin. That sin, there is no sin that you can name that when you say, well, if I keep doing this on a regular basis, I will be better in the end. It is for my benefit that I do this. No. Like the demons. They're like, we're not here to help this man get along. Like, you like superhuman strength, that's great. Yeah, but it also comes with cutting yourself and running around naked and howling at the moon and all those things that aren't good. This man is alone. He's living in the great cemetery. I mean, he's been an outcast. It's the goal. It's what sin designs to do. It is designed to destroy and to take you from where you want to be to where they want you to be. We have those things that we need to be aware of, which starts to bring this story much closer to home than just if I'm demon-possessed. Much closer to home. Well, I don't have 2,000 demons. Think about this. One demon, 2,000 demons. Which would you prefer? Like, one's better than 2,000. No. No one's going to be like, well, if I have to, give me the one, I guess, No, we're like, I don't want any. Why? Because whether 1 or 2,000, the goal is the same, to destroy. But it's not just about being demon-possessed. It's not just about being possessed by a demon, but the story's not over yet. The demons leave. The man goes into the pigs. And look at what happens next. It says, those tending the pigs, which next part kind of makes sense to us, right? Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, if you saw this happen, you're going to put it on social media. Like, wow. Like, and by the first, 100 come over, you're probably going to pull out your phone and, video it, because it's pretty impressive. It's pretty weird. So we would do what they do. It's not gossip. They're just reporting to this town in the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. They're kind of curious. Demon-possessed man, pigs, let's go out and see. Whoops. Did I skip? Go back a slide, because I think I didn't read the whole passage. Yeah. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed. This is where Mark refers to the illusion that alludes to that he's naked, and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. And catch this next part. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. It's kind of an interesting reaction to all this, right? Demon-possessed Dave has been the talk of the town. I mean, at night, they're laying in bed, and they can hear demon-possessed Dave on the hilltops crying out, and it's one of those things, they're like, man, there's somebody's got to do something about Dave. Dave is just he's demon-possessed. We need to do something about Dave. He's howling at the moon. And now they see Dave sitting at the feet of Jesus, dressed and in his mind. They're like, is that who I think it is? It doesn't make sense to us. The transformation that has taken place is nothing but remarkable, and it is a picture of what discipleship is about. A restored individual sitting at the feet of Jesus. I mean, if you think about it, there should be a party going on, because they're like, thank you. We no longer have to deal with this madman howling at the moon. We no longer have to deal with this guy that none of us can control. There should be a party going on, except what is happening? They're afraid. And they ask Jesus to leave town. Shouldn't they be asking him to stay and do more? I mean, if you could do that for Dave, demon-possessed Dave, what can you do for me? But there's something that's interesting that we see happening here. And it's something that we need to be aware of in our own life, and it is this: is be careful when we prefer familiar brokenness over disruptive salvation. Be careful when you prefer familiar brokenness over disruptive salvation. Yes, Demon Dave had some quirks, made some noises at night. People probably wish he would not have. But he was their Demon Dave. I mean, they had learned to live with him. They had found some solutions. We kind of managed him. We kind of put him on the outskirts of town. He's in the cemetery. None of us really go to the cemetery because it's an unclean place to be. And we just kind of come to accept that Demon Dave is a part of our world. It's just a part of who we are. Yes, it was a mess, but it was their mess. I mean, they kind of gotten used to it. Some of them maybe even found at night his howling was kind of soothing. It's like, man, I can kind of go to sleep now. Dave howling at the moon, maybe he was a great singer, and it was kind of nice. And they're like, wow, it's kind of soothing right now. Because he's out there, he's not in town, and then we can hear it, and we just keep our distance. And when Demon Dave just becomes Dave, there's some ripple effects that people start to feel. I mean, let's be honest, 2,000 pigs running off a cliff, that's a big economic hit for the town. I mean, it was not a small price that they had to pay. Jesus didn't just address the problem that they had. He was now messing with their lifestyle because he'd come to town. Because of the problem that he'd addressed, he was now messing with the bottom line. He was becoming disruptive to the way that things usually were. Yeah, and it's interesting because now what happens is they see all this and they plead for him to leave. I wonder if we can have that same approach. Yeah, we've got some mess in our life, but it's our mess. It's kind of like we've gotten used to it. We know that our legs hurt, and instead of going to the doctor, we just change the way that we walk because it doesn't hurt as much anymore. And so we're just like, well, I just got used to it. It doesn't bother me as much anymore. We know we have some brokenness in our life. There are things that are not the way that they should be. But if it means that Jesus has to disrupt the way that my life is, I'm not sure if I want him to do that. I don't know if I want him to disrupt the life that I've gotten used to. And if so, maybe I'm not real keen on Jesus fixing my problems. I kind of like my brokenness because it's my brokenness. It's the way that I've learned to live life. It's like we're good with Jesus until he starts to mess with our lifestyle. And when that happens, we're not too sure about it. Jesus, I'm okay with you until what you start to do starts to mess with my bank account. And when you start to mess with my bank account, then we're going to have a conversation. Jesus, I'm good with you, except when you start to mess with how I spend my time, that's when we're going to have a little bit of an issue, and we're going to just have a conversation as, okay, Jesus, stay in your lane, because I don't want you messing with my lifestyle over here. Jesus, I'm good with you. I'll come and I'll worship, but the moment you start to mess with the direction of my life, we're going to have a conversation because I don't want you to be too disruptive with things. I've built for myself a pretty good life. Now I've got things around me the way that I want them to be, or at least the way that I think I want them to be. And yeah, there might be some brokenness in my life. There might be some things that, maybe aren't good, but they make me happy. They bring me some fulfillment. And the minute you start to mess with those things, yeah, Jesus, I know I may be broken, but it's my brokenness. I'm kind of happy in my brokenness. And that's when we start to prefer the familiar. We're like the townspeople. We're like, Jesus, before you cause any more disruption, we just need you to leave. Like, great, hey, man, we're glad what you did with Dave. Like, demon-possessed Dave is now Dave, and that's probably going to take some getting used to and all that. But Jesus, that's great and all, but you're a little disruptive to our way of life. And so we just want you to go. Just move on down the road. I don't want to know what more you can do for us, because if you can do that for Dave, what might you do for me, and how my life might change because of that? And I don't know if that's what I want right now. And we need to be careful of that. When we start to prefer the familiar brokenness over the disruptive salvation that Jesus wants to bring into our life. And the only reason it is disruptive, it's not because it is bad. And sometimes we look at this, we think of disruption as bad, and it's not bad. It's simply because it's not how we want it to be. And when life is not how we want it to be, sometimes we're like, Jesus, just move on down the road. Jesus, I don't want you here anymore, because you're starting to be disruptive. And I like my life the way that it is. I like my brokenness. I like the things that are messy because it's my mess. The story continues, though. It's not over yet. And there's a lot that's going on in this, but this is how the story ends. It says this: as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed, so demon-possessed Dave, begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So the man went and began to tell in the Decapolis, which Decapolis just means 10 cities. And it's this area of town, or this area of the region where there were 10 cities. Many believe that it's a Gentile part of the countryside. One is because they're taking care of pigs, and Jews did not do that. The other is because of the graves and all of that. I mean, it's just one of those things that they look at this, and it is probably a Gentile town. And there were 10 of them that were located around there. And so that's the Decapolis. And how it begins to go and tell the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. And the final thing that we see in this story is this: salvation is not just being rescued from something, but being restored for something. Salvation is not just being rescued from something, but is being restored for something. You can understand the man's desire, right? I mean, it makes sense. Here's what Jesus has done for me. I've gone from demon-possessed Dave to just Dave. I'm not running around naked anymore. I'm in my right mind. Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus, you don't need to convince me anymore. I know who you are. And Jesus, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. Will you let me go with you? And what is Jesus' answer? It is no. Which, if you've been paying attention in the story, this is the first time Jesus says no. The demons say, hey, Jesus, can we go into the pigs? Jesus says yes. The crowd says, Jesus, will you leave our town? Jesus says, absolutely, I'll leave. Jesus, the man, Dave, comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, well, let me go with you. And Jesus says, no. Jesus is like, wait a minute, demons can do whatever they want. You let them do it. You're like, I witnessed that. The crowd wants you to leave, and you say, okay, I asked to follow you. I asked to go wherever you go, and you say no. Well, what's going on? But look at what Jesus says. What's Jesus' answer? No, don't go with me. Instead, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. Jesus saves the man from his demons, sets him free. But it is more than just saving him and setting him free. It's about giving him a purpose and a mission. What's his purpose and his mission? Tell your story. Go to your people. Go to your home and tell them what I've done for you. Tell them how the Lord has had mercy on you. This is your mission. Your mission is now to go and tell what I did in your life. You need to go and you need to share the story, how you went from demon-possessed Dave to just Dave. You need to go tell the story of what I've done for you. Tell them the before and the after. And here's the thing, you and me, our mission is the same. We are not just saved from something, but we are saved for something. To tell the story of what Jesus has done for us. And here's the thing, be thankful that your story doesn't involve being demon-possessed by 2,000 demons running around naked howling at the moon. Be thankful for that. If it is your story, I'm glad you were delivered from that. That's an incredible testimony. Jesus has done great things, and you need to share that. You know, wherever we're at, we have a story. And what is that story? It is the same foundational framework that the demon-possessed man. Here is who I was before I met Jesus. I was demon-possessed, running around, howling at the moon. No one could contain me. No one could control me. I couldn't even control myself. To the fact that I was cutting myself with rocks, and I was just trying to figure out what life was all about, and I didn't know. And then I met this guy who got off a boat, and I ran up to him, and he healed me, and he cured me, and now look at my life. I am dressed, I'm in my right mind, and I want to worship, and I want to follow Jesus wherever he goes. That's his story, the before and the after. And that's all that Jesus asks of us, is to go tell our people that story. The story of how things that once controlled us no longer have that same power over us. Those things that were looking to destroy us. But now, because of Jesus, here's how are we transformed. Does that mean our life is perfect? No. It doesn't mean that we've figured it all out and we're sinless. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about what Jesus has done for us. But this is what it means. It means to go say, hey, this is the thing that I've seen in my life. You know what? I had a problem with gossip. I had a problem with anger. I had a problem with greed. I had a problem with lust. I had a problem with fill in the blank. That was my demon. That was the thing that looked to exert control over me. It was the thing that I didn't know if I would ever get over. And you know what? Because of what Jesus did in my life, I now have power over that. Not because of me, but because of who he is and what he's doing in my life. And here's the thing. It's just to share our story with our people. And the great thing about our people is our people know our story. Like if you went in tomorrow morning to your workplace and they didn't know you as demon-possessed Dave and you started to share that story, they're going to be looking at you like, what? But they know you. They know who you are. Your people are your people. It's where you live, where you work, and you play. That is where Jesus says to go share your story. Why? Because they will be able to relate to your story. It's those people that you come into contact with on a regular basis that you tell your story to. And here's the great thing about this. This man does exactly that. He goes to the Decapolis and he begins to tell his story about what Jesus does. Jesus does what he's supposed to do, or what he's asked to do. He leaves. He goes to another part of town. But just in a couple of chapters later, and we're going to see this as we get into Mark, Jesus comes back through this same section of territory. Only this time, the reception is a little different. Instead of them asking Jesus to leave, they actually asked Jesus to stay. They start to bring people to him to heal. And not just to heal, but they sit down on a mountainside and they listen to what Jesus has to say. So much so that they get hungry. And Jesus is like, okay, we need to feed them. And it's not the feeding of the 5,000, it's the feeding of the 4,000 that we're going to take a look at here in a couple, in several weeks. Where does that happen? It happens in this same part of town where they asked Jesus to leave. What changed? What was the difference? The man told a story. The man told a story of what Jesus had done for him. And the people then, when that Jesus comes back into town, they're like, I want to know more about that Jesus. Because Dave, I saw you 2 months ago and I know who you were. And you're telling me that this guy set you free? They're not worried about the pigs. They don't have a bill for Jesus going, 2,000 pigs, that's pretty costly, Jesus. Here's what you owe us. No, they have a change of heart because of what Jesus had done for Dave and what Dave had been beginning to tell the people. And I don't know if the man's name is Dave. It just worked with demon possession, okay? But our story is the same. And here's the thing that's the great thing about this story. If Jesus can do this for a naked, demon-possessed man, what can he do for you? Like, it means that no one is out of God's reach. Because in those days, there was not a man that could be more unclean than what this man was. He's naked, he's demon-possessed, he's living in the tombs, he's just hanging out with dead people all day. Like, there was no one that was more unclean according to that day's standards than this man. And look at what Jesus could do for him. And if Jesus could do that for him, what can he do for you? Because we're not that man, right? We're not as bad as that. We don't have it as bad off as that guy does. But no one is outside of God's reach. And yet Jesus sets him free, and he can set us free. We are all invited to have that same before and after picture of what Jesus is doing in our life. The question is will you allow it? Maybe for some of you here this morning, there are things that, as we started to talk, Jesus said, these are the things that you're letting have power over you. You think you've got it managed. You think it's under control, but it's not. And those things, that thing that is slowly trying to destroy you, and it's seeking to destroy you. And this morning, you just need to wake up and say, you know what? I can't let it destroy me anymore. And instead of me trying to control it, what I need to do is go to God and say, God, this is something that only you can handle. Will you help me? Will you do this for me? Will you show me the steps that I need to do to kind of help this? And I don't want to do it on my own anymore. Those things that you're trying to control on your own, but you're having no success. And you need to come to Jesus and say, Jesus, will you help me? Maybe there's some of you like your brokenness because it's your brokenness. You like the mess that you're in because it's your mess. And then Jesus said, you know what, just embrace the disruptive salvation. Embrace the unknown, knowing that it will be better in the end. Yeah, it may disrupt your life for a little bit, and it may not be easy. Because anytime, it's like that scab, you rip that scab off, it kind of hurts sometimes, but it's part of us. But Jesus says, for the healing to take place, you need to get rid of it. And so for some of you, you're like, man, I need to embrace the unknown. I just need to say, God, okay, if you want to bring healing, here's my mess, here's my brokenness. God, will you fix it? And maybe some of you just need to see that you were not just saved from something, but you were restored for something. And you need to start to find your people to tell your story about what Jesus is doing in your life. Not what he's doing in the life of somebody else. Not when, well, did you hear what he did in so-and-so's life? But here's what Jesus is doing in my life. Here's my before. Here's when I met Jesus, and here's my after. This is what Jesus has done for me. Maybe there are things in all three categories that you need to look at. But this is the great thing about Jesus. He comes to us and says, this is who I am. This is what I want to do for you. I did it for him. I want to do it for you as well. Let's pray. Holy Father, this morning to thank you for who you are. God, I can't imagine what the disciples were thinking as they got off that boat and just seeing what you had done for them on the storm and calming the winds and the waves. And then the moment they step off, here comes challenge number 2. And God, I'm sure their nerves were just all over the place. But then they watched with amazement and with awe as to what you did for this man. And God, I thank you that for some of us, you've protected us from being as far gone as what that man was. But Father, whether it's 2,000 demons, whether it's one demon, whether it's no demon oppression or demon possession, it's just the sin that we allow in our life. God, it's all the same. It's those things that seek to have power over us, to control us, to destroy us. And so, Father, I think that you came not so we can do it on our own, not to watch from afar, but you came to set us free, to do what we could not do, to tame what we could not tame on our own. And so, God, I thank you that beyond any self-help book, beyond any 10-step program, God, while those can be good, God, ultimate healing comes from you and what you do in our life. And so, God, I pray this morning for those that are dealing with those things that are seeking to control them, that, Father, they will wake up and they'll come to you. Father, for some that they like their brokenness because it's their mess and it's what they're familiar with and what they're comfortable with. God, make us uncomfortable. May we see what life could be surrendered to you. And Father, I thank you that no matter our story, we all have a story. And that man's mission is our mission, to go and tell our people what you have done for us. And so, God, may we embrace our story, embrace our brokenness, embrace the healing, embrace the mission that you've given us. God, thank you for who you are. Thank you that you haven't given up on us, but you pursue us to bring us healing. And it's your name we pray. Amen.